What's up, everyone? Welcome to new gameplay today. My name is Marcus Stewart. I'm joined by Kyle Hilliard. Hello.
Hey, what's up, Marcus?
Hey, we're about to go out and go on a mission because we're playing Metal Slug Tactics, the long-awaited spin-off of the popular Metal Slug series, where instead of running and gunning, you're very carefully plotting turns on a grid and shooting people and gradually chipping away at their health.
Yeah, I read your preview that you wrote, which you can find on the site, I'm sure, at this time. And you said this was announced in 2021, which I didn't realize it was that long ago. It's wild.
Yeah, it was the final E3 ever, the online digital-only E3 that this game was announced at, that we all attended as avatars. Remember that?
Gosh, I don't think... Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I think I signed up for an account and then, like, made an avatar, but never did anything beyond that, I think.
That's more or less what I did. What a hellscape that was. But
yeah,
this is a lot more of a much more interesting, I guess, sort of like hellscape. So yeah, I don't know how much of a Metal Slug fan you are, but I've always been like, I'd say like a decent fan of the series. Like I remember I used to like playing them in arcades as a kid, and then I played like the various collections of them over the years. I don't know if it's a series I'd ever say I was like super passionate about, but it was always fun for like just like a mindless run and gun shooter, especially because of how like expressive the character sprites were and because of just the copious amounts of explosions.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I've never beaten a Metal Slug game, but I have very specific memories of like I would be somewhere that like not an arcade, but maybe like a pool hall, and they would have a couple machines, and I remember seeing a Metal Slug one and just being completely enamored with it because the animation was so cool.
Yeah, and this game is and I'm a turn-based strategy fan too. Like I enjoy tactics games, so when this game was announced, it was such a fun little surprise because it was like you would never expect those two things to blend together as well as it looked at the time, which is why it was such a almost frustrating when the game sort of went quiet for years and you would get like minimal updates and then delays and you're just like, what is happening with this game? But yeah, it's finally coming out this fall. It's being developed by, I don't know how you pronounce the name, Likeyear Studios, I think, but it's being published by Dotemu, who fans might remember as the developer of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, and the Streets of Rage 4. So it's got that pedigree behind it. But yeah, as you can see here, if you're a Tactics fan, this looks very familiar. You've got your three characters there, Marco, Eri, and Theo, who are, Metal Slug mainstays. And it's pretty standard turn-based combat, at least on the surface. But what's cool about it is just the sort of customization that each character can have. So each character can have a primary weapon and a secondary like special weapon, and your primary weapon has unlimited ammo, like a handgun, or for Eri, because she's the explosive expert, her primary weapon is like a grenade that she can throw. But then the secondary weapon, like a machine gun or a grenade launcher, that has limited ammo that you have to manage throughout the entire campaign because the game is, I don't know if this was out there before, but the game is actually a roguelite on top of being a strategy game.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so like as you saw in the beginning, you pick a region, which in this demo there was only one region unlocked, this kind of desert land. And every region has like a set number of missions, but you can only do like half of them before the boss shows up. And you can do the missions in any order, but you can only pick missions that are adjacent or connected to the ones that you've already completed. So it's kind of like and you can see which each mission sort of rewards you in terms of like, hey, this is the objective. This is what you'll get for doing it. And then there's a secondary objective that has its own rewards. So it's got that roguelike kind of like planning where it's like, okay, if I want to get this, this, and this, I should probably tackle the missions in this order. Like you kind of have to plot your route in advance. And then, because as I mentioned before, with the special weapons having limited ammo, let's say your machine gun only has 20 bullets, you have to make those 20 bullets last throughout the entirety of your time in the campaign. And the special weapons do more damage, but because of that, you kind of like, okay, I don't want to just like blow it all in this one fight. I should probably save this for maybe the boss. So there's like some interesting like inventory management going on, and you can replenish your ammo as a reward for certain objectives. So again, it's one of those things where as you're plotting your missions, you're like, oh, maybe I should do this one just because it'll reward me with more ammo for my weapon.
Gotcha. So you're making. I mean, that's tactics, like, right? That's the genre. Is like you're making decisions now with the intention of like this will pay off in like 5 or 6 rounds, and that's just they're expanding it here, like beyond missions and into a roguelike structure where it's like you gotta make decisions early on to make sure you're ready for bigger things in the future, right?
Yeah. And one of the coolest things that you can do in this game is that they're called Syn Attacks. So if you're let's say if you're targeting an enemy, if there's an ally that is in the fire range of that enemy, then you'll do a Syn Attack where after you attack them, the ally that is in line with that enemy will automatically do an attack. So you'll pretty much get like 2 hits for the price of 1, and you can get 2 attacks out of 1 unit because, again, kind of like standard tactics, every unit can attack once and they can move once. So it adds a lot of like thoughtful like placement to maneuvering, which is a big thing with turn-based strategy, like whether it's some games reward you more damage if you attack a unit from behind or something like that. This is kind of this game's version of that, of like making you really consider where you want to place people and then rewarding you like, hey, if you play your cards right, you could just like dogpile on a guy with like having your entire squad attack. So like what I'm doing now is what I'm setting up, like, okay, I have Marco lined up, so like all of them are within this guy's line of fire. It won't matter because like 1 hit's gonna kill this guy. But like if he had more health, all 3 of them would have just gone off on him.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and it actually adds a bit of a puzzle element to the combat too, because you're kind of looking at the map and say like, okay, like how can I solve this? Like how can I maximize this turn? Like I could take out maybe like 2 enemies, or I could deal a little bit of damage to 2 enemies with like 2 separate attacks, or I can maybe wipe out 1 guy entirely with 2 people. Which one makes more sense? And so we're seeing here the sort of post-match rewards where you can choose abilities. So every character has like a special action, which is like basically like an activated ability. Like Aerie here has one, the explosive jump, where she can do this leap that like damages foes around her as she jumps to like a higher elevation. Theo, who's more or less kind of like the field manipulator / healer of the team, she has a cool special action where she can summon a drone that can pick up enemies or allies and just drop them to another square. So you can kind of like, oh, I'm going to put this guy that was far away, I'm going to put him right in my crosshairs now. Or like move an ally out of like the line of fire and put them somewhere safe.
Do you know if these are like permanent upgrades that you're looking at now, or are these just like per run, or is there a mix of both?
So every character has like a starter like ability and also a passive ability, but then everything you unlock from what I've seen like resets with each run. And so like every time you win a match, you get another randomized selection of like skills that you can add. So you can build your characters to suit a certain play style or to play into their own sort of individual like inherent traits if you want. But like it makes every run fresh, because it's like, okay, based on what I'm getting this time, maybe I'll gear this team towards like rewarding me for doing Syn Attacks, because there's like special abilities that like favor that. Or maybe I'll build Theo to be more of a healer or more of a protector, and like if I get skills that appear to emphasize that, I'll pick those.
Are you saving anybody in the game? Remember that being a big part of Metal Slug proper, is like alongside like running and gunning, you would also be saving I don't know, just like random people. They look like hippies or something.
You do actually. Those
All
same
right.
hippies are sometimes they appear in stages like they're tied up, and they're like optional like objectives where you can just move and untie them and free them. But yeah, that is in the game. Hardcore Metal Slug fans will recognize a lot of the characters and even enemies. Like the boss fight that was available in this demo was apparently a boss in Metal Slug 2, which is like this gunship named Big She, I think is how you pronounce it. It's like Shiee. And I believe all the enemies are all old Metal Slug bosses kind of reimagined in this format. And yeah,
That's
we're doing
cool.
Even though the escort kind of mission we're doing here with Rumi, who was another like longtime Metal Slug character, trying to get her to the exit. And there's multiple like styles of objectives. Like there's one where it's like, hey, just escape, like just get to the end of this stage without dying. Or there's one where it's like, hey, there's a convoy that's leaving, you need to blow it up before it escapes. Or a survival round where like just last for 5 rounds. You know, you can kill, maybe the optional objective is like, hey, kill 10 people along the way, but other than that, just don't die. But yeah, so it does change it up enough so you kind of like you can kind of go with like, oh, do I feel like doing this right now based on the reward that they're giving me, or should I go after it because it has something that I need right now? But yeah, it's got some like pretty nice variety. I think the thing I was most struck by, and I wrote this in my preview, is because it's a roguelike, the first like several runs of the game were surprisingly like hard. And I consider myself like experienced enough this genre where I was kind of like taken aback by how hard it is at the start before you start to unlock some stuff, because of like how ultimately limited your health is, and you can only have 3 people on a squad versus the like 15 sometimes people they throw at you. And then they constantly add new reinforcements, and you can't heal yourself. Like there's no like potions or anything like that. There are certain passive abilities that heal based on a condition that you fulfill, but it's not like you can just walk up to someone and be like, here's some more health, you know?
Right. Okay.
Like the closest thing is you have a limited number of revives called reinforcement points. That's the meter in the upper right-hand corner, those little green notches. And like every time a character gets knocked out, you can choose to revive them. But that's all the revives you get for the entire campaign. And again, you can replenish that depending on if you do a mission that offers that as a reward of like, hey, you get 1 reinforcement point. But other than that, that's all you get. So again, you're like, all right, someone went down. Should I spend a point to revive them, or can I get through this with what I have because I want to save my revives for like a harder battle or the boss?
Right.
And these sword guys throwing stuff. I love how like silly the game is. Like Metal Slug is a really silly series. Like I like the weird enemies, like these sword throwers. There's some
who are pulling swords out of their mouths when they throw their one sword.
And then I guess they just keep doing it. Like they throw a sword and then they just regurgitate another sword.
Yeah, that's normal stuff.
Yeah. There's also like cool like stage hazards you can interact with to try to again get the most out of your turns. Where one of my favorites is there's like a cobra pot that if you shoot the pot, the cobra wakes up, and then if you're anyone within the cobra's range, it'll strike it, so that you can let the cobra just like wipe out 1 or 2 people or more. And then also it has the effect of just like making the enemies have to maneuver around it, which can slow their approach to you until the cobra goes back to sleep. There's also like cranes you can operate where you can drop like suspended crates on top of people, and at least that's all I've seen so far, you know, but I imagine there's more stuff like that in the other regions that are locked in the demo. But
yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, and you're seeing I'm trying to set up a sync attack. That's what the purple highlight means, is that it's letting you know like, hey, you can do it. This will be a sync attack because someone else in your squad is lined up. And the sync attacks get better as you get more like passive abilities that reward you for doing them. Like I think there's one where it's like, hey, if every time you do a sync attack with this character, both characters involved in a sync attack will do extra damage. And that guy is no longer with us. But yeah, I'm playing on PC right now, which is great for this. You know, just easy to just point and click and move around. The game's also coming to consoles, as we learned recently, because it had been for a long time only slated for Switch and PC. But it's also coming to PlayStation and Xbox too, which is cool. And yeah, other than that, I think the game, as challenging as it is at the kind of the first several runs, like once you start getting like used to it and more abilities to play with, and you can start like getting creative with how you build your loadouts, it starts to sing. And you know, it's hard to tell how good the strategy evolves over time in this like small slice of it. But I enjoyed myself the more that I played it, which is always a good sign for any game, right? It's like, okay, like now that absolutely. I'm getting more into the systems, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see the game sing a bit. And again, it's for a series that I would have never pegged for this genre, it fits better than you would think. And that was my cool little jumpy attack that I mentioned earlier, and triggered the sync attack. Sorry, I'm just feeling myself right now because I'm like,
yeah, no, I it was a surprise fit when they showed it, but like at the same time, you're like, yeah, no, that works because you have the cool pixel art and like it's sort of got like that military. I don't know. That tone's not
Aesthetic,
the right word.
yeah.
Aesthetic and like, yeah, it just it works, and I like the way it looks.
Yeah, it reminds me of Gears Tactics. You remember that? Where that was another one. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this works better than you would think for this series. But I remember having fun with that game too. But yeah, Metal Slug Tactics, everyone. It's coming sometime this fall, and I'm excited to play more of it.